Welcome to Ask Ms. ERP. The topic of this video is how to execute ERP training. Hello everyone, Ms. ERP here. This topic is really a continuation of the previous video, number 43, on ERP training strategy. In this video, I will assume that you have done your research and have a plan that you are ready to execute on. I will give you some ideas on how this might work, so obviously pick and choose whatever might work for you. Your goal is to maximize adoption of your ERP application to get the most value out of it. Whether it is something entirely new, something to be refreshed, or just a small change, all end users should feel prepared. There is an infinite list of ways to provide training. People learn differently based on their learning style, so the more options you can offer, the more successful you will be. The best training is targeted and timely. It might seem a bit daunting at first if you have big goals for your training strategy, but break it into chunks to make it manageable. Start with what you already have. A lot of ERPs come with fantastic help and training capabilities now. Sometimes it is even context sensitive, maybe with tutorial videos or possibly audio enabled, and sometimes even a place to practice. Learn what is on offer with your ERP as you are paying for this as part of your maintenance or subscription fees. No point in reinventing the wheel if it already exists. Then, get the information on how to use this ERP vendor-provided helper training out to your end users. Tips on communication were in video number 42. A must-have, in my opinion, is a central location to post things like training information, announcements, process documentation, a calendar showing ERP events, and whatever else might make sense. I have found a well-advertised intranet site works well to create a one-stop shop for all of your ERP users. If you can make this support intranet site pertinent and keep it current, you may only have to update this site to keep your users informed. Also great if you can provide a mechanism to ask questions. Though if you do this, make sure that it is monitored and the questions are being answered. Lots of teams or functional areas will need to work together, so create a framework for materials and delivery that is easily updated. Set some simple standards for look and feel to help your users navigate, and so that the content will look familiar to them if their role changes. Poorly developed or disorganized materials will create confusion and lack of confidence, and it is much harder to bring trainees back if this happens. Way better if you think about a framework up front to keep it easy to manage. As suggested in the last video, having a person that covers support site management and training coordination might make sense. Once you have an ERP support intranet site, you can provide easy-to-find, self-directed, self-study materials. This could be video application walkthroughs, recorded web-based training, any kind of interactive multimedia stuff you or your ERP vendor have, or good old training documentation with effective infographics that reinforce learning concepts and outcomes. Things like quick reference guides, tips and tricks, and FAQs are great to have, but I would suggest not to use ERP form screen prints in your documentation as they are a pain to maintain. Only create what you can maintain easily, and remember, we live in a world of rapid change. A SaaS ERP can take updates as often as quarterly or even monthly, which may impact the layout of your screens. Think about reusability of whatever training you offer. Face-to-face instructor-led training still remains the best, but try to record it so it can also be an online training session and used until something changes. It is easy to record virtual sessions and have them available online. You could have discussion groups with short "Did you know?" topics, lunch and learns, or open sessions for questions on common topics. Expense entry is always a favorite. Make sure to provide summary descriptions about each training session to manage user expectations, whether live or recorded. For most roles, the supervisor is responsible for ensuring that a staff member gets the tools that they need to fulfill their role, whether that is to find the info themselves, sign up for training, or have on-the-job training from a mentor or more senior person. To find training material themselves, you need to make it easy for them. Hence, the one-stop shop recommendation for an ERP support intranet site. Not having the appropriate training will result in inadequate proficiency and poor benefits realization. Depending on the role, you may want to consider whether certification would be useful. So you could have a test at the end to measure learning, but that only applies in certain instances, like a new staff person or perhaps for a big process change that you really want to make sure that a group of people are proficient in. I have just covered a whole bunch of training mechanisms. Think of it like your training toolkit. Now you need to group your target audiences into categories so that you can tailor their training experience to fit their situation. The first category of training is for new hires, or people new to an ERP role. I call this onboarding training. You certainly need to provide them instructions to the ERP support intranet site in any welcome package, and you may want to consider having a new person page on that site. These new hires or those transferring into a new role will also need to be trained within their business area to learn the specific tools and responsibilities of their role. The delivery mechanism used should be the most appropriate one. This is another category of company-specific business process training, ideally by role or task. For example, requisition entry or invoice approval, or at whatever function or level makes sense for your company. New skills are learned more effectively when placed in the context of daily job duties. Any business process change, either driven by the business itself or from any application change, may require training material updates and communication to employees. Training and communication should always be considered and included by business teams as part of planning for enhancements or new features. For example, provided user training, FAQs, or tips and tricks should be part of an implementation plan. Then there is a category of ERP change training that will be needed for any system enhancements or new functionality being implemented. Depending on the complexity, this might also include testing and development of new training material. SaaS ERP updates usually come with some mandatory features and also some optional features which you may want to implement. Either of these may need communication and training. Make sure you post information on new features on your support site, enabling user self-service. Find the right level of detail to convey, and I suggest that you treat low-impact changes as non-events. We are all used to smartphone app updates, so if possible, treat an ERP change the same way. The last big category of training is what I like to call refresh training. Knowledge and ability both erode over time, particularly if someone is not keeping up with the changes. Business areas should be able to identify the needs in this area, based on the methods I mentioned in the previous video on training strategy. I believe that ERP training is something that is worth some effort to manage and maintain. If you can increase effective utilization of your ERP application, you will be helping your company get the most value out of their investment in ERP technology. This concludes the How to Execute ERP training topic. There is a link on askmizerp.com to email me to ask questions or suggest topics for future videos. Or you can just add comments on any YouTube video. Please subscribe to my channel. Thanks, and see you on the next video.